Hi everyone, I'm Summer, author and creator of the Loodor Tales series. The series launched with The Land of the Pines and the sequel, The Land of the Strays, which are both Amazon bestsellers and are told through the lens of animals to instill self-worth and really engage in a conversation with today's youth about where we are and what connection really means. So with that said, today we are on the Who Are You tour. It is the Spring 2024 tour where I am visiting with Region 8 schools across Texas. And today we're at Daingerfield High School. I'm so excited to talk to each of you. First, I'm going to speak a little bit about who I am. So I would love to just go around the table. If you guys could tell me your name and your grade, and then I'll tell you a little bit about me.
Virgil Castro,
Okay.
sophomore.
Sophomore. Okay.
I'm Raya Nelson, a freshman.
I'm Dornan Martin. I'm a freshman.
Okay.
I'm Josiah Beecham, and I'm a freshman. I'm Liz Medina, and I'm a freshman. I'm Rebecca Swindle, and I'm a freshman.
Perfect. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, I am the author of this book series. Most important, coolest thing about me is that I'm from Daingerfield. So I graduated from Daingerfield High School. This is home, always has been, always will be. I graduated from school and I went to college at SMU. So I moved to Dallas to go to college. I studied advertising, psychology, and marketing. Got my degree in marketing and I went to work for a software company out of school. And I did that for about 4 years working in marketing. But I knew in my heart that I really, really loved advertising because it was like the creative part of me. I decided one day, okay, this will date me a little bit, but I was like, I'm going to go tap on the door at the local newspaper, at the Dallas Morning News. I'm going to see if I can get a job. And they basically said no, which is like, hello, wait a minute. We're not going to say no. And so I interviewed, they said no, there was no job available in advertising. And so they offered me a job in circulation, which basically is how the newspaper is circulated, is distributed. And it was an important lesson for me in hindsight, because I didn't really want that job, but I learned everything about printing and publishing and, the process of distribution. And so it's one of those things where I tell students now, you're going to get presented with opportunities and experiences all throughout life. And they may not be what you want, but there's usually a reason that it's happening. And so to embrace that and to kind of give it a moment and to consider, like, is this something where maybe the universe is giving me something I didn't even know? So I did it for about 6 months. I worked in circulation. Then my advertising job became available. And so I started tapping on doors, local businesses, and learned to work at the newspaper. And I say that it was one of the most instrumental parts of my career because I learned to accept no for an answer. When you ever work in advertising, people will say no. And so I learned 2 rules out of that. One, try not to accept it. Ask the important questions. Ask why someone is saying no, and if you can change their mind. But if you can't, don't take it personal. And so those were really important lessons later in life. But that experience led me to my big break, which I got to work in magazines, in national magazines in New York. So I got the call that said, hey, we've got an opportunity for you. You've been showing up, working really hard. You've proven yourself, which is half the battle. So come to New York and we're going to work at House Beautiful, which is a magazine, and Cosmo Girl. I did that for about a year and got my big break working at Food Network. And I launched a Food Network magazine, which is pretty awesome, which led to opportunities to work with People and Elle and InStyle. And I did that for a long time. And I say all of that for the sole reason that I have a 25-year career in marketing and in storytelling and in creative thinking. And a compendium of that experience is what allowed me to create the Loodor Tales. So all of that to say, that's how I got here. And that's really what I bring to the table and what I want to talk to you about in terms of who I am and what we're going to learn together today. So this is about the Loodor Tales series, and it follows Gray the kitten on her journey to become her best self, to learn who she is, right? That's the big thing. Who she is, what are her superpowers, and what does she want to become? She's born at the Jam Barn, a Black Mountain farm, BMF, and she is assigned Miss J the bird to be her guardian. Miss J is kind of like the mayor of the farm, like teaches her all the cool animals and everything else. And Gray knows, like when she's born, she knows that she's meant to be more than a barn cat. Like she just knows it in her gut that that's the thing. But there's a pecking order on the farm. And so she's got to really prove that to herself. Like she's got to work for it. Eventually, Gray meets the Black Widow, and the Black Widow presents Gray with a worker's decree. That workers decree, a little bothersome. It has two parts. The first of which is the Black Widow says, hey, I've got the power to make all of your dreams come true. So I can make you the most influential cat or animal on the whole farm. Catch though, you're going to have to forego decisions. You're going to have to allow me to make all of your decisions for you and control the narrative. Otherwise, you can take the risk. You can pursue your own dreams. You can try to forge through the trials and tribulations of the trails of the farm, but there's no guarantees, and we better not cross paths. So she's basically saying, here's your ultimatum, and take it at your own risk. Gray learns through writing Biggie the Deer's Cup and all of these wonderful experiences and life lessons that she's got a magical voice. She unlocks it at the top of the mountain, and she learns that this is her superpower and that it can be used for good. It can only be used for good. But it can build things or it can break them. And that is a huge thing that I need and want you guys to understand, is that you have a magical voice and that you have an opportunity to become what you want to become, to use your voice to carve through any obstacles and to really pursue your best self. This series follows Gray into each of her journeys. The next one was The Land of the Strays, where she goes into the city. She meets a whole new assortment of animals. And the overarching question with that is that they are all asking, am I enough? Scout, the golden retriever, this guy, inspired by the 9/11 dogs that arrived at Ground Zero on the days after September 11th. Really, you would think he's like this big dog that knows and knows himself, but he was really struggling to know, am I enough? And that was the big overarching theme of that book. There are 4 books. The third is coming out later this year, and so that's certainly a bigger discussion. But regardless, over this series, Gray is consistently seeking to connect. That's the thing. She is seeking to connect with herself. She's seeking to connect with others. And today I want to talk about what it is to connect and what seeking means. Like, seeking is searching, right? We're all searching for something, especially in today's world, for so many things. But I'm going to take a moment because I'm going to break down the 4 pillars of what it is to seek. And those are self-worth, existence, empathy, and kindness. And we're going to talk about those 4 things in depth. Before I do that, I want to ask you guys, because you've read the books, if there are any characters or quotes or scenes, you don't have to go into too much depth, that just resonated with you, or that you want to take a moment to pause and say, hey, I really liked the symbolism, or this quote meant something to me.
So what I really liked was how, like, you kind of talked about it a second ago, was how the Black Widow was kind of trying to quiet Gray's voice, was like, I'll be the one in charge of every decision, basically saying, you know, I'm the narrator. I get to choose how this story goes. And I feel like one of the biggest reasons why she did that was because she felt like she didn't have any power.
Correct.
And so she was just trying to, you know, get a hold of that little bit of power, even if it was bad. And Gray later on in the story, you know, realizes, hey, I have a voice. I don't need someone else making these decisions for me because my voice is powerful, you know. I am heard, I am seen. And then I feel like, I believe there's a scene where her and the Black Widow kind of overcame the hourglass.
Absolutely.
And Greg showed the Black Widow how, you know, you too have a voice. And it can affect people, can make or break someone.
Absolutely. Stepping up for someone, speaking out on their behalf. So yeah, Gray ultimately uses her voice for good. And that's really what it's about. That is the power of it, is that she's able to step up. And that's an opportunity that we all have. So I love that you speak about the Black Widow, and the relationship between Gray and the Black Widow really is so important too, because, you know, it's that parallel where we're all looking for the same things, we're all searching for the same things, and they are able to use Gray's voice to benefit
Can
both.
I just say one more thing real quick? Another thing that I really love was how originally the Black Widow was like kind of break Gray. Yet after all of that, Gray still, you know, stepped up and was like, hey, I see the real you.
Yeah.
And gave the Black Widow another chance and saved her.
Saw past the stereotypes and saw past the false narrative that was permeating the farm and said, no, I see you. I see the good in you. And I want to give that the opportunity to shine. And I'm going to use my voice to make that happen for you.
Yeah, I feel like we need more people in the world like that.
Oh, yes, we do. We totally do. What about you, Rebecca? Who did you like, or what did you like?
I feel like I really connected to Blaze
Okay.
because of the fear of abandonment and the fear of opening up and letting people in. She was scared that, she let more people in, that they would just up and leave her like, her owner did at first.
Yes. That's so good, by the way, because I had that same fear for so long. As you know, every one of these characters there's a part of me in all of them. People always ask, like, which one are you? You must be Gray the kitten. And I'm so quick to say, no, I'm not. So I'm so glad that you bring Blaze to the table, because she is such an important character to speak to that, and to speak to that vulnerability that we all have, and that fear we all have of abandonment or of being left behind or irrelevant.
Here's a quote, but I think it was like when like Gray was like climbing or was gonna climb up on something, that he was gonna see the same faces down.
Yes.
I feel like that's a really big quote, because like no matter like what you do or where you go, it's always gonna be the same.
Yes. And so, you know what? No one has ever brought that quote up in meetings. I'm so glad that you did. That's actually a quote my grandfather used to say to me. That's why it was so important to me. And I know it was Gray is in the city, in the living room, and she's looking at the curtains. And I can't get the quote exactly right now, but it's basically saying, careful who you step on your way up, because you're going to see those same faces on your way back down.
Yeah, like it's going to like come back to you.
Yeah,
like
if you don't treat people with kindness all the way up, at some point, if you come back down, you're going to see those same faces that you weren't kind to, that you didn't go out of your way to help.
And that will be your karma. Like
that is exactly what it is.
yeah, it's gonna follow you until you make it right.
Until you make it right. Until you do.
Until you face those problems that you avoided at first.
I mean, I'm so thrilled that you brought that up. No one ever talks about that. It's so funny. Those are both excellent takeaways. Yeah, but it was my grandfather, and my grandmother used to say, "This too shall pass," but that was my granddad's quote, and so I found the curtains as the way to bring that in. So before I move on, does anybody else have any other quotes or any characters that you guys want to address? Totally cool if not.
When Gray's brother and sister left, so that kind of stuck with me a little bit, because the brother still went back and said, "Hey, you're gonna do great things."
Yeah.
But then he still ended up deciding to leave. It kind of reminded me with me and my siblings. They all decided to leave, and they said, "You're still gonna do great things without us."
Boy, that's tough. Yeah. You got my favorite thing about these roundtables is that you guys bring such good points to the table, and part of it is that you're at a particular point in your life where you're growing. You're going to leave. You're going to go on your own path. You may not understand the people that come into your life or that leave your life, but there's the point is to provide you with enough support that that as they leave and as you move on, that you're able to do that, and that you have the confidence to know that you can become something, right? Gray and with her siblings, it was interesting. I wanted it to be something where she felt different, where she felt as though she was kind of an outlier, and she kind of had to come to terms with the fact that it was okay to feel different. Like her siblings were feral. They were mountain animals, and they wanted to live out there. Gray knew there was something different about her, and she wanted to explore it, and she needed to feel like that was okay. And so when her brother said, "Hey, you're going to do good things," and she knew at the end of the book that her brother was watching, that was kind of the reason, was that she felt that support when she needed it, but she also felt like she could go through and explore and do all the things that she needed to do, and it was okay to leave. And it was okay to stay, and it was okay as long as it was your decision. But that's what that was really about.
I really do like that.
Yeah, right? Yes.
There's this part in there where Lane, I think he was younger, and he found out that he could read minds.
Yeah, he can. So he's magical ears, and so he can hear the inner thoughts of other animals. And so that was really about I feel like we live in a world where you hearing and listening are different things, right? And people want to be heard and they want to be seen. And so with Lane, it was really about it's that intuition of knowing if someone's okay, and he could hear those inner thoughts and what you do with that information.
There's so many people who it can either be someone who's hiding a mental disorder, or it can just be someone, hiding their bad
Intuition?
Bad intention.
Their poor intention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like being able to actually read the body language and having that gut feeling.
That gut feeling that and that's the hair on the back of your neck where you know what the real answer is. So I'm going to talk about the 4 pillars that, again, circling back to Gray and what she's doing in this overarching series is that she is seeking to connect. And so, again, it's self-worth, existence, empathy, and kindness. And with self-worth, it's really about, I talked a little in the beginning about who I am in terms of my career. What I didn't say is that I suffered from really debilitating social anxiety for most of my early life. It prevented me from really being comfortable talking, from going to parties or speaking or engaging, because I was always in my own head, right? And so I had to learn how to get out of that. I had to learn that the mind chatter wasn't really me. It wasn't a reflection of me. So that's, Mikey the Maine Coon, one of the things he says is own who you are. And I think a huge part of owning who you are is like, I'm a small town girl through and through. Owning and learning to love who I am, and having that sense of self-worth is knowing that chatter and those insecurities aren't real. And if you can power through that or learn to silence them, that's a huge component to connecting with yourself. The other part of it is, again, we've talked about the Black Widow. Well, and that Black Widow has this hourglass that overshines other animals and that has taken over the Black Widow and constantly is chatting in her ear, right? And pushing her to take over the room and to overshadow others. Well, I really wrote that as a symbol of representing social media and representing the fact that we live in a time when you've got this constant chatter from the outside. And I wanted to ask you guys how you silence that. I wanted to ask you first, is it a real problem? And if it's a real problem, it's kind of a 2-part question because I want you guys to just talk about it. A, how do you silence social media? And B, is cyberbullying real? Because those are really bigger things that I think we deal with, you guys deal with. We read about it all the time. And I want to know, whatever you're willing to share and able to share, how you silence it, how you deal with it, and what it's really like.
How I silence, cyberbullying, people on the internet. What I do is I figure out who said it, and I see, what their point of view is of how they see me, and I try to explain to them, let them see, the real version. And also, when people try to tk about me and bully me and stuff, they really don't have anything on me because I do not talk to them.
Right.
That makes sense.
They're creating something that's not actually true. And so as long as you know that, then that's half the battle in silencing it because it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I really don't really pay attention to anybody though because I know what I know. They do not know me.
Who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Basically, what I want to say is, not to, counteract anything you just said, but in my opinion, there's never really a way to completely silence it.
Okay.
In my opinion, you just kind of learn to live with it. Because you're always going to have, someone's always going to have an opinion about you. And whether you spend it's your decision of whether you spend your whole life trying to change that opinion of theirs, or you learn, you're just like, okay, well, this is what you feel about me. This is who I am. Whether you want to believe what everybody else says or what the actual evidence is, that's on you. And I hope you the best in life. But I also hope that you learn that, what everybody else says isn't always what the truth is.
Yeah.
We actually just read an article in reading this morning about how, you can say one thing and the more, it's like telephone, the more you tell the next person, you always add your own twist of words, whether you mean to or not.
Right.
And so it's like, the cyberbullying, it's always, it's really hard to deal with. It is. I've had people, everybody has TikTok nowadays pretty much. Safety wise, anything can happen. You can always slip up on social media, accidentally post, something that signifies where you are, when you're there, something like that. So, what I like to do, and I've noticed a lot of people do it too, is you can record a video. Like if you're at the state park, record a video, save it to your drafts, and when you get home, when you're away from that location, you could post it.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That
That is a
way-
great tip.
That way, it's like if
No
you
one's
post
following,
it,
no one can follow you. That's a really fantastic tip to share with people. with
That's
your
what I
kids.
just did. Like I had made a bunch of videos with this girl at my last track meet, but it's like you never know what people's intentions are, so you never know who's nearby. That's like, oh, I recognize this team. I recognize this field post. I recognize these bleachers. Let me show up and see
Man.
what I can do.
Yeah.
So it's like, you always save it to your drafts, and then when you're in a different location or far enough away from that location or with someone who can keep you safe, then you can post it.
Okay.
That way it's always, and then you always have your location on Life 360 or Google Maps, whatever you use.
What do you think is the right age collectively as a group here? What is the age that it should be permitted for social media?
I think 13.
13.
Because
That's what the you say 14.
15.
15.
14
Okay.
if they're mature.
I was a internet kid, like unsupervised kid, so I've seen a lot of stuff on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
internet. A lot of like gruesome, disturbing things, just because I was unsupervised at a young age.
Okay.
yeah,
But now I'm just kind of unfazed by most
And
things.
that's such a good word to use, because that's part of the issue, is that you guys have seen it all at your age when you shouldn't have, and so you're unfazed by the magnitude of how bad some of it is. It doesn't even resonate with you as being like troublesome, because it's like, oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to this all the time. It's unbelievable to me that you guys in high school are having this type of conversation that is so complex, and you're the ones driving it, because you have been exposed to so many things and you have been become unfazed. That it's like, I think adults don't really understand sometimes that you guys are capable of understanding so many more things because you've been exposed to so many more things.
And I wanted to say something about the whole little age limit thing. The reason I say 13 and 14, 15, I agree with that too, is simply because I was younger. I got my first phone at 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, and I started social media like right away. I was like, oh, everybody's doing it. I want to do it. And there was a lot, like I don't remember a lot of it, but the things that I do remember was, those videos where the girls were in their tiny little shorts and crop tops, and, me and my 10-year-old self was trying to recreate those posts. Like, I'll be honest, I try to recreate those posts because, that's what was popular at the time. So it's like these 9, 8, 10-year-old little girls watching these, adults, and sometimes even them allowing their kids to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, well, if she's doing it, she's getting all these likes and all these, nice comments, and she has all these followers. So maybe if
All
I
these
do it,
friends.
then maybe if I do it, I'll have that many friends. I'll have that many people like me.
And it changes your entire perception of self-worth and self-esteem
And
from
sometimes,
the age of 9.
and at the time, I remember I had posted this little video. It was just of a little, like that dance, and I had put in a little emoji over my face because I didn't like how I looked in it. And I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and I had gotten like 600 or 700 likes. So, I was like, oh, wow, well, this is the content they like. Let me keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Until, thankfully, there was a teacher at my old school who I saw a video, and they told my mom about it. And finally, my mom was like, yeah, you're too immature for this. This is not,
Right.
And so I didn't have social media again until about last year. Because it was like my mom had given me chance after chance, but at the time it just wasn't registering me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I had Snapchat to talk to my friend, but it was always like, well, you could delete things easily, and you could see if but it's there forever. They can easily screenshot it. Whether you can see that they screenshot it or not, it doesn't matter. It can still, you send one inappropriate photo, it can ruin your life.
It can.
The digital
Mhm.
footprint.
The
Digital
digital
footprint.
footprint. I talk about this all the time. And it's like, it's always going to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like truly, like you guys, of educating it becoming part of everyday conversation.
Yeah, and I feel like more parents, before they really get the fun. I know every parent's like, oh, well, don't do this. I feel like they need to actually sit down and be like, hey, these are the consequences of what will happen if you do this.
You won't get into the college you want. You won't get the interview you want. They're going to search your digital profile and they're going to look at every single comment or post or video, whatever you've put out there, and they're
Right.
going to judge your character based
Based
upon a
on the-
misconception.
And there's a lot of mistakes I've made that I really wish, I would have had someone to, like, my mom did a wonderful job, but she wasn't really the type of parent to watch every single thing I did on social
Right.
media. And it's, like early on you learn, okay, well, if I delete this and she'll never see it, or if I set it to private, or if I block her, then she won't see it. So it's like, you learn how to be sneaky early on simply because it's like, this is the society we live in.
And then that's planting this pattern of behavior of being sneaky.
Mhm.
Yes.
It kind of ties into what I had planned to talk about next. And so you guys tell me if we should keep going on this or not. It's the existence part of living in a world where you have access to everything, every product, every person, every platform. With existence and living in that kind of a world, everybody's watching constantly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I tell people this a lot, Bo, the wise owl, wears all-seeing glasses. And there's a lot of reasons he does. Some of it's symbolic, some of it is sentimental. For the purposes of this conversation, one of the things that was true is I wanted it to be a reflection of the fact that someone was always watching. And so knowing that and living in this world of technology, does it change how you present yourself?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
Because it's a two-parter really. One, are you ever free?
No.
And then and answer that, and then what you're presenting, is it real or is it what you think the perception should be for social and what technology is? So I guess the first thing is, do you feel free at all?
No. Like you said, someone is always watching.
Or recording or
Yeah.
documenting?
So it's like, you can show up to school one day and not know it, hair in a messy bun, t-shirt, and baggy pants or whatever. And you can end up in the background of someone's TikTok, and then it's always like, oh, who is that girl in the back? Why does she look like that,
When I ask the question, I'm, again, older, and so I'm selfishly sitting there thinking, I could go to a school dance, right? And dance and have fun and be free. And you guys can't even do that. Y'all can't do any of that because everything's being recorded and then later and watched and judged. I have a niece, and I was talking to her in advance of some of these sit downs, and I was like, trying to figure out some of the questions that would resonate or that would make most sense. And so her question was, and this is part of the peer group thing, right? I would love after this to hear what your questions are for other kids. It was if you're actually able to be yourself and to present yourself as your true self, or if you're constantly having to present whatever you think is acceptable or you think is supposed to be on social media.
Definitely the second thing.
Definitely the second.
And it's not even just like what it's on social media. I feel like, and y'all can agree or disagree, any person you're talking to, you'll have a different demeanor or a different personality. So it's like I can be sitting here talking to Luce, and we can be kind of childish, just talking about food and stuff, and then I'll turn around and I'll go talk to someone else who's a little bit more popular, a little bit more judgmental, and I'm like, oh yeah.
I feel like that people do change the way that they what they want, their conversations and all that, to be up to the standards of other people.
The next point is empathy, and that's such a huge word for all of us, right? It's the whole reason that I'm doing this whole sit down part 2 of a tour, is that I want it to be something where, you never know what somebody else is going through, and that if we can just all feel seen and heard and talk, that you might not feel so alone or isolated, or you might not feel shame about whatever it is because we talk about it. It's getting to this, and this is kind of the big, one of the big things I want to ask. I'm coming into these conversations, and I read all of the time about statistics about y'all's age group. And so I want y'all's opinion. about them. One is that adolescents, age 13 to 18, are persistently sad or persistently anxious in a way that they weren't 10 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Tell me this, how can we be more empathetic to each other and connect? What is something that you would encourage your peers to do, or an action that we can take out of this to demonstrate better empathy for each other?
I actually had a random idea. So I know Who is like this Who Are You program, and it's you talking to people. But what if there's someone who wants to talk, kind of like we are now, having this open discussion? Like, I feel like this has just gotten so much weight off my chest, is sitting in this group with people who haven't judged me at all with anything I've said.
Right.
And I feel like everybody needs that. So, crazy idea. You could take it or you can leave it.
Let's have it.
I feel like you should set up like a landline or like a phone number where if someone has a story they want to share,
I
they
love
can
that.
easily.
It's a support opportunity so that we can continue this movement to be empathetic and to connect with each other and to share, so that you do feel as though you're part of a collective.
And we can have like a group of different people using that line. So it's like if they want to talk to an adult, they could talk to you. Or if they want to talk to a male, they could talk to, a male. Because some people, like men mostly, aren't really always comfortable with talking to women about their feelings.
Right.
And so, they might feel comfortable talking to a man. And women aren't always comfortable talking to men about certain things. So, maybe it's easier to talk to. And they can always be given the option of, hey, would it be okay if I use this in like an article or something? And if they say no, obviously, like, okay, this will stay between us, and this is my advice to you. Kind of like we've been sharing all day, like
Who
my
are you and how
past
can I help?
Exactly. That's what I feel like this number could be used for. So it's like, like, hey, I just, it's free. That way, anybody could do it. They could just call and be like, hey, I need to get this off my chest. This is what happened. What's the advice you have for me?
I think that's a great idea. I really do. I think it's a great idea, and it's a way to kind of continue forth this mission, to connect, to make a difference. And it kind of very, very poetically gets me to a place of kindness, which is the fourth word. And, one of the action items that I was going to ask is, how do we demonstrate kindness to other people, to where it's received and it's authentic, right? I know there are probably examples where people have been kind to you or you've seen kindness happen. And so that really perfectly marries into something that people can collectively work on to demonstrate kindness and to, as I always say, to open a door. Because coming from Daingerfield, coming from a small town, I learned, as you did, that opening a door for someone or smiling at them as they're walking down the hall can change someone's life. Like, it's so simple. There's no reason to overcomplicate it. You might be going through something and in your own head having this really terrible dialogue, and somebody smiles at you and it's like, oh, maybe they see something in me that I don't see in me today, and it changes everything. And I always talk about how important that is. So whether it's a line, a form of communication that connects all of us, some mysterious passageway that we create together that affords us the chance to make that phone call, or just something that you do at the end of each day or walking down the hall, and that changes the trajectory of someone's life. That's always what kindness means to me. And hopefully we can all leave here today and smile at each other in the hallway and realize that this was a moment to have a conversation and to understand.
Moment
A moment
of freedom.
of freedom.